Acute Type A Aortic Dissection, May 17th, 2025. Before May 17th, I didn't even know there was such a thing as aortic dissection. Then, surprise. This is a bit of a personal video. On May 17th, I had an incident which is, I think, called a type A aortal dissection. I was in this apartment and I felt 3 twinges kind of in the center of my chest. Wasn't terrible, it wasn't like agony or anything. But after a minute or two, my left leg began to go numb. And so I thought it was a pretty good idea to go to emergency. So I kind of hobbled my way down to the elevator and down to the parking lot. And by the time I was crossing the parking lot, I knew that it was a good idea to go to emergency. My leg was beginning to hurt like hell. The part that wasn't going numb was hurting a lot. So I drove off to the Campbell River Hospital, which is maybe 2 or 3 kilometers from here. So I pull up. By then I'm kind of dragging my leg behind me. And it's a Saturday morning. It was May 17th, Saturday morning. So there was about 2 or 3 people in line ahead of me at the emergency department. No huge amount. And of course the person behind there just did her usual thing. She said, just sit down, have a seat, wait. I'll get to you as soon as I can. So I took a couple of steps, and then I realized that wasn't a good idea. So I turned around and I said, no, if I don't get in a wheelchair, I'm just going to fall down right here. And I'm not kidding. She said, okay, and then she said, what's your emergency contact number? I basically pressed the button on my cell phone for my brother and handed that phone to her. I heard him answer, what's going on? Who? What are you doing? And then at that point things become more jumbled. I think not sure, I think maybe they did an x-ray and a CAT scan here in Campbell River, determining that I was that I needed a nice flight to Vancouver. So the next thing I remember, we're sort of waiting in the corridor outside to get into the helicopter. There's a couple of pilots, of course, a couple of emergency personnel, and I'm on a gurney, and off we go to Vancouver General Hospital. At that point, a bit of a bizarre scene opened up where one of the technicians on board, the actual emergency technicians, he began to sort of describe what I was looking at. Okay, that's the Strait of Georgia, and there's the island of Gibraltar, there's the island of whatever, and there's the North Shore of Vancouver, and it was about a 45-minute flight by helicopter. The only thing I requested was that it sort of bend my knee up every 5 minutes, go up 5 minutes so that it was sort of elevated, and then flatten it again 5 minutes later, and then up, down, and that relieved some of the pain. Now, you'd think your leg going numb would be painless, but that's not exactly right. From the knee down, it was basically had turned numb, but everything from the hip to the knee was not happy. But we actually had a relatively interesting conversation. I said, yeah, there's my old university, Simon Fraser over there, and oh yeah, I remember I lived there for a while, and 45 minutes passed. I landed on the top somewhere of Vancouver General Hospital. I remember them pulling me out of the helicopter, getting organized, and sort of going down the corridor for a little way, and then I don't remember anything after that for a while. So there I am. So apparently, from my brother and sister that joined me later, I was kind of operated on pretty quick, and then I was more or less under. They had tubes and whatnot sticking up, and they were evacuating the drivel out of me, which fortunately I don't remember. So otherwise, I think it would have hurt more, or at least I'd remember more hurt. This is me in the ICU room. Approximate timeline. Aortic dissection, May 17th, 8:15. Get to Cabell River Hospital, 8:30. CT scan, 9:15. On helicopter, 11:30. Surgery in Vancouver General, 15:30. In ICU room, May 18. In recovery room, May 20. Discharged, May 26. Okay, after about 4 or 5 days of that, it may have been May 21st by then, I was put in kind of a recovery ward for heart, whatever. And so started to recover, which was not a lot of fun. Which was not a lot of fun, but get a better view. Now, as I say, it wasn't a lot of fun, but to be truthful, by then, the amount of pain I was feeling was like maybe 3 out of 10. So I've had surgery before, serious surgery before. This is in fact an old gallbladder extraction which occurred when I was 25, and it hurt far more than what I felt for the heart surgery. So I guess they've managed to improve their pain medication or whatever they've done, so good. Now you can see the actual, this was like open heart, basically open chest, so it was chopped from here to here, open. This was the old gallbladder, chopped from here to here, and then this over here, I believe, were a bunch of tubes and things that were in there, like for drainage and such like. So that's what that stuff is over there. All these little diddly dots and things across here, if I understand it correctly, these are actually pacemaker wires, not pacemakers, pacemaker wires. So they had the pacemakers in, they had the pacemaker wires in, and so if things went suddenly bad, they could hook me up and zap me, or basically control the pace of my heart without without all of a sudden doing emergency surgery. So after, I don't know, after a week or 10 days later, they pulled out I think they pulled out these tubes and whatnot here, and then they eventually pulled out the pacemaker wires. Now, I don't look as bad now as I did then, but a lot of that was primarily, I actually had a clot in this arm, or still do, I assume. You can see a little bit of it there. And then this arm was kind of inflated. In fact, everything was inflated. I gained about 30 pounds on the exchange here between the pre-surgery and like a day after surgery. You see other little diddly dots and things around here. Again, these are just insertions of wires and whatnot. You can also see maybe down here, it's faded pretty much now, but you can imagine that my arm was, especially this one, because they didn't want to screw with this one because it had a blood clot in it. So this one had all sorts of IVs and stuff, various IVs for a various amount of time, and they were injecting and pulling and grabbing blood out of there and doing whatever's, and of course putting in drugs of one type or another. And they were also inserting drugs in my stomach and here. But as I say, the actual pain management seems to be pretty good, relatively speaking. So I might wake up in the morning with a pain level of 3, or in the middle of the night with a pain level of 3, and they'd give me some pills, and boom, it would go down to 1 or 0, so I could sleep. And then of course there's always little leftover things. I've got something, they were tied in something here. I don't know if you can see that in my throat. Lots of fun. But after a while, well, 2 weeks later, well, it was actually maybe last Monday, which would make it about 11 days ago now, they released me from Vancouver General Hospital. My brother drove me across the ferry, the British Columbia ferries, over to Nanaimo. We drove up to Campbell River, and it's now the 31st of May, and so here we are. So far seems to be recovering. My understanding of what they actually did, a type A aortic dissection means there's an ascending aorta artery which decided, for whatever reason, to kind of split somewhat, okay, as it went up. And I guess maybe it goes up and goes back down into your leg. I'm not sure about that. And so it went up, and so they actually put a stent in there. Plus they had to put a new valve, a new organic valve, apparently. Plus they then had to rehook one of the main veins or arteries sort of in that area to get it back working again. So there you go. The staff at Vancouver General was very good, and they were as nice as they could be, put it that way. So, and of course my brother and sister came over and saw me. They probably saw me at my ugliest when I was actually under and coughing and spitting up debris, but I don't remember any of that, which is good. In the meantime, I had a couple of CAT scans and the various things as they confirmed what was going on and trying to figure out why I had a minor fever and stuff like that. So anyway, that's the big deal for me, from my perspective.
This is the recovery room. View from my recovery room. I know my aortic valve was replaced. And since my left leg was numb, logically, the dissection was extensive. I'm not going to discuss surgery details, but the repairs seem state of the art.
So apparently I have about 3 months of Wearapin, that's that blood thinner stuff, to go, and I won't be golfing it much for until maybe late August. I might get a small round in if I'm lucky. All in all, I don't seem to have suffered any damage. I can't say that for a fact. Of course, they had a good look to see if there was any stroke possibilities. Apparently, there are some minor ones, or they thought they could see a few things, so they were concerned. They are concerned. One sort of interesting side thing was when they woke me up after about, when they woke me up after that, they kept asking for the date, which was actually about May 20th. Well, I was guessing like March 15th and whatever random numbers like that. So for some reason, those psychos really wanted to know the date. So it took me about a week to be able to come up with it sort of on a consistent basis. And the other thing they wanted to know was, where were you? Vancouver General Hospital, or at least a hospital. Again, they really wanted to know where I was for some reason. I guess they don't have a good sense of direction over there.
The doctors would tell me the date, then the next day they'd ask the date. I did not know. So they'd tell me again, about 4 days like that. I believe they were concerned about a possible stroke during surgery.
So, meantime, I'm going, my first my local doctor here, I'm going to be seeing him on Monday. So there's a few random things to take care of. Nothing major at this point that I know about. So we'll keep my fingers crossed that this will go okay for this summer. It's now about 2 months after the event and the operation. After about a month or so, I was able to drive, which was nice. Now I'm feeling decent. Every day sort of is an improvement, although I still get tired very easily. But I can usually walk 45 minutes in the morning and 45 minutes in the afternoon at a very slow pace. As long as I don't go up too many hills and things like that. I still have to go in to get a blood analysis every week. It's because I'm on this warfarin stuff, which started out as rat poison, so that's kind of encouraging. But with luck, I'll be off that in a month. Everything else sort of seems okay. They were somewhat worried that I had a small stroke while in the hospital. That's not uncommon in this situation. Seems to have dissipated, cleared up, whatever's going on. I don't have any obvious missing bits in my memory or etc. Of course, I haven't tried everything yet. Similarly, I'm apparently very lucky because I don't have any numb parts that are still numb, like my left leg could be basically completely numb at this point. it could have died from the lack of blood during the helicopter ride to Vancouver. But that doesn't seem to have happened, so it's working okay. As long as nothing falls apart, I should be okay for a while.